on income tax, on 148 Commissioner Appeals and Tribunal Appeals. We are into the third session, wherein our speaker of the day, CA Harigaru, who is from Visakhapatnam and extensively deals with the tribunal cases at Vizag bench and elsewhere. I welcome you, sir, and also I welcome our regional council member from Andhra Pradesh and also the secretary of SARC of ICI to this program. I welcome you all, sir. Now, before we commence the session, I request our chief guest of the day, CA Muppal Subbarao Garu, Regional Council Member and Secretary of SIRC, to say a few words so that it will be like a catalyzer to the session. Over to you, sir. Subbarao Garu.
Thank you, sir. Good evening. Vijayawada branch chairman Ravi Kishore Garu, Secretary Jayant, and the learned speaker CA Narayana Murthy Garu, popularly known as GVN Hari, and other members who joined the web lecture. A very good evening to all of you. I am very much delighted to be part of the series of web lectures on income tax, particularly on appeals before Appellate Tribunal. In fact, organizing web lectures without CPE credit is a novel idea, really. Actually, SIRC is going to organize web lectures on income tax for 2 hours on every Wednesday and Friday, every week from the next Friday. We planned for 40 hours of web lectures in the month of May and June, sir. But Vijayawada branch started much earlier than SIRC. So I appreciate the efforts made by the Vijayawada branch. ఏదో మా బాలకృష్ణ అన్నట్టుగా చరిత్ర రాయాలన్నా మేమే, తిరగ రాయాలన్నా మేమేలాగా విజయవాడ వాళ్ళు ఏదైనా చేయగలరు. కాకపోతే ఈరోజు గెస్ట్ కానీ స్పీకర్ కూడా ఇద్దరం గుంటూరు వాళ్ళమే. హరిగారు గుంటూరులోనే తన ఎడ్యుకేషన్ అంతా చేసినట్టు నాకు తెలిసినంత వరకు ఆయన ఇక్కడే చదువుకున్నారు. హరిగారు I can say proudly as he is an authority in criminal matters, sir. Definitely, as you said, in Visakhapatnam bench, without Harigaru, నాకు తెలిసి హరిగారు లేకుండానో హరిగారు కేసులు లేకుండా ట్రిబ్యునల్ బెంచ్ మ్యాటర్స్ ఉంటాయని నేను అనుకోను. అంత రెప్యూటెడ్ అండ్ రినౌండ్ ప్రాక్టీసింగ్ మెంబర్ అండి ఆయన. సో I hope all the members will be benefited from his lecture, particularly on appellate matters. Really, once again, I thank the organizers for organizing this type of series of lectures, and thanks for giving me the opportunity. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Subbarao Garu. We are happy that you have joined us and have given your opening remarks for this session. So, friends, CA Harigaru, he is actually Narayana Murthy Garu, but he is famously called as Harigaru. So I am addressing him as Harigaru only. Sir, we are happy that sir, one of our past chairperson, Penukonda Subbarao Garu, also joined. Sir, Subbarao Garu, welcome, sir. Happy that you have joined this session today. So, friends, the speaker of this session is an authority in tribunal cases. So, friends, of late, the representation before the assessing authorities is not as similar to what we were practicing 2 or 3 years back. There is a version of a change as far as the way in which the assessments are carried out, the way in which chartered accountants are consulted and represent before the assessing authorities. And also, we already know that section 148A and 148, what is doing to the assessees. So every day there are a host number of notices and orders that have been passed. So friends, our speaker today, Sir Falgun Kumar Garu, welcome, sir. I welcome Falgun Kumar Garu. He has joined, and also I appreciate and thank Falgun Kumar Garu for suggesting such a good speaker for today's session. Sir, if you can unmute and throw some light or as a curtain raiser to this session.
Just now I joined, so I don't know this thing, but I know Hari Garu personally, and I sought his help also in the past, and he's a doyen in the tribunal cases now, and he's representing now before the High Court also as an advocate, I believe, and his experience is very rich experience, and when he's come forward to accept to share this his experience through this webinar, we as the professionals are beneficiaries, and I'm sure today's session is going to be a much say enlightened one, and all the participants will get their updated about the tribunal procedures, tribunal knowledge, and ultimately I can say it is the art. So Hari Garu is much rich experienced, and he has got his own innovative ways of his majority, sir, maybe not less than 100 of your cases reported decisions, sir, journals. In journals, so many journals, his name I find, sir, minimum, sir, whether we are more than that. So majority of his cases are reported in the journals. That is the say contribution he made for the knowledge. That's how I have also taken some of his decisions for quotation in some other cases. So that's how say తినబోతూ రుచి ఎందుకు అన్నట్టుగా ఇప్పుడు ఈ ముందు తొలి పలుకులు ఇంతకన్నా ఎక్కువ ఉండడం సమంజసం కాదు కనుక వెబినార్ ని కంటిన్యూ చేయవలసిందిగా కోరుతున్నాను. Thank you.
Right, sir. Thank you. Thank you for this opening remarks, sir. Now I hand over the session to the session speaker. It is all yours, sir. Over to you.
Thank you. Chairman of Vijayawada branch, Ravi Kishore, C.A. Ravi Kishore. Secretary, SIRC, Subbarao Garu, Falgun Kumar Garu. Other members of the managing committee of Vijayawada branch. I could not see who are all the participants here. Maybe there will be so many known faces. So it's in fact indeed rather great pleasure for me to be here with all of you to share what little knowledge I have with regard to practice and procedure before Income Tax Appellate Tribunal. Though my introduction might have raised the expectations for the members participating, I start with an apologetic note that I could not come with a structured presentation due to paucity of time. But because it is one job, a day in and day out, I have been doing, so I think I shall be able to render justice for the purpose for which I have been invited. Now coming to the relevance of the topic, already the chairman has thrown some light. The episode actually dates back to 1/4/2021, when from the reassessment proceedings have been drastically amended. All these provisions relating to reopening might have been discussed threadbare in the first session by the learned speaker, C.A. Kapil Goel. I only want to say that because of this amendment, there are two important changes that have come into being. One is that the time limit has been increased from 6 years to 10 years now. Earlier, there were two separate time limits, 4 years and 6 years. Now the time limit is 3 years and 10 years. This is one very important change. Subject, of course, to the monetary limit of 50 lakhs rupees. Then another important change is that earlier, the assessing officer was compelled to first record a reason. The reason should be that should enable him to form a belief that income of the assessee has escaped assessment. Now the new procedure, though in a way it is a procedure that has been brought in to help the assessees, but the main difference between the old provisions and the new provisions is that here, for issuing notice under 148A subclass B of the Act, it is sufficient if there is some information available in the inside portal. It is technically called flagging of the information. So if any one of the sources where from this information is required, that source, suppose they flag that information in the inside portal, then simply based on that particular information, without any application of mind of his own, the assessing officer can issue a notice under 148AB. Now, though it is a beneficial provision, unfortunately, the information picked up now is not verified with the physical records that have been developed by the assessing officers prior to the conversion from manual assessments to faceless assessments. In fact, in some of the cases, the very same issues were earlier verified by the authorities. They were satisfied that there is no escapement of income. But this information was not translated from physical mode to digital mode. Therefore, what is available now in the portal, the inside portal, is only the information uploaded by the source or flagged by the source. But there is no information that this subject was already inquired into earlier. So therefore, notices are coming for as early as 2013-14 like that. Assessment year 2013-14 like that. Another important change is that this amendment corresponds with the shifting of assessments from manual to faceless mode. Unfortunately, many of the taxpayers have not updated their information in the web portal. The emails were not updated. The physical address was not updated. And many of the people have stopped business in this period, during this period of 10 years. And they have stopped filing returns of income. Therefore, there is no occasion for them to log into the income tax portal. So due to all these reasons, what is happening is that 148AB notices are getting converted to 148AD orders. Now, as you are aware, once the order is 148AD, there is no separate requirement to add any reason. Automatically, notice under 148 is issued, followed by assessment proceedings. Assessment have been made in this particular financial year, bringing huge amounts. Simply, SSC have not. It is a different matter that in some were made on a
సార్ హరి గారు కొద్దిగా మీ కనెక్షన్ లో ఏదో
Yes.
ఇష్యూ ఉంది సార్. ఇంటర్నెట్ లో కొద్దిగా ఇష్యూ ఉందండి, అందుకని వాయిస్ బ్రేక్ అయిపోతుంది.
అసలు వినిపించట్లేదా?
మీ విజువల్ కూడా ఫ్రీజ్ అయింది.
Hello.
సార్ ఇప్పుడు నౌ ఆడిబుల్.
Okay. I don't know how far you could listen to what I have said till now.
It's దాదాపుగా everything is fine, sir, but for last 30 seconds, that's all.
Last that is okay. So because of all these reasons, so many assessments have been made, and this necessitates filing of appeals. So that is how this topic has become very, very relevant. And it is a very good idea on the part of the Vijayawada branch to have thought out to have a series of meetings, web meetings, starting with assessment, and then the CAT appeals procedure, then the Tribunal Appeals and procedure. I really congratulate them for this good idea. Now, coming to the procedures before the Income Tax Appellate Tribunal, I would like to say that a job well begun is half done. Now, what is the beginning? Where does the beginning exist? This is the most important question that we all should know. As you are all aware, the appeal is only an offshoot of the assessment, and assessment is only an offshoot of the return of income filed, and the return of income is only an offshoot of the books of account maintained by the businessman, and the books of account are the result of the business carried out by the SSC. Now, if the business is carried out with absolute clarity, and if all the transactions are done in accordance with law, then there will not be any addition in an assessment, there will not be any appeals. But as we all know, there is always a tussle between the government and the taxpayer. The government wants to maximize their revenue. The taxpayer wants to minimize his tax liability. As a result, the businessman most of the times does not come out with a complete disclosure of his true income. Then added to this, the books of accounts are not properly maintained. Even if the books of accounts are maintained, the supporting documents are not properly prepared. Now, there is in between the maintenance of books of account and the filing of the return of income, there is one intermediary step. That is where we professionals come into picture. We conduct a tax audit. If it is liable for audit under any other statute, apart from that audit, tax audit report is also prepared. And it is after that the return of income is filed. Now, as you are aware, the tax audit report, if the tax audit is religiously conducted, and if all the columns in the tax audit report are properly filled in, then the computation will be in accordance with the provisions of the Income Tax Act. Because all the computational provisions are built into the tax audit report. But unfortunately, due to constraint of time, the tax audits are done in a haste. Many of the relevant clauses in the report are not properly verified and filled in. As a result, even though the books of account are subjected to tax audit, the return of income does not reflect the computation or the income in accordance with the provisions of the Act. So therefore, once the case is being selected for a scrutiny, most of the times it is resulting in additions. This is one aspect. The second aspect is the representation during assessment proceedings. I do not want to take much time on this issue because you had a full length session as to how to represent before the assessing officer in an assessment proceeding. But I would only say that the best way a good appeal can
I'm afraid there is an issue with the network of the speaker.
Are not audible.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I got it. I'm trying to reach out to the speaker. Please give me a second. Sir, మీ కనెక్షన్ లాస్ట్ అయింది సార్. అయ్యండి ఇంటర్నెట్, బట్ అది ఏదో కొద్దిగా ఇష్యూ ఉన్నట్టుంది. ఒక్కసారి చూడండి సార్. అట్లా yeah, he will be rejoining at any time. Sir, in the meantime, Falgun sir, what the speaker is saying that where the SSC has maintained books of accounts properly, where the audit report, because the computation of income, the assessing officer will be dependent or take into consideration the audit report which has been furnished by the SSC. Of course, the audit report will be uploaded by the chartered accountant and then accepted by the SSC. If all these things are in place in a proper manner, then the additions by the assessing officer will also be to an extent possible. There will not be any complications as far as the assessment order assessment order is issued. So your thoughts, sir, on this issue where we as chartered accountants need to improve upon is point number one, and where we need to advise the clients so that they will be in a proper manner preparing the books of accounts. Your thoughts on this?
Sir, the ground reality, as I have seen, all the tax audit report furnished online to the income tax department are not 100% after verification of the books of accounts as expected by the income tax department. Because it is not my observation. The CAG, sir, వచ్చేసారు లైన్ లోకి.
Sir, yeah. Sir, please unmute and continue, sir. Yes, sir. Please go on, sir. Sir Harigar, can you hear me? Please go on, sir. You need to unmute yourself, sir. సార్ హరి గారు మీ వీడియో కనబడుతుంది, మీరు అన్మ్యూట్ అవ్వాలనుకో. ఓకే డన్. ఇప్పుడు ఒకసారి ట్రై చేయండి సార్.
ఇప్పుడు అయింది కదా?
రైట్.
ఓకే ఓకే. I'm extremely sorry for the inconvenience. In fact, I have two internets in my office. One is high-end internet from BSNL and one is Jio. Jio, this audibility problem is there. I shifted to BSNL, but that is somehow not getting connected. I do not know how far I would be able to carry forward, but let us hope.
No issue, sir. You please go on, sir. No issue.
Otherwise, I will let me switch off the video. Otherwise, maybe the audio quality will be more.
That is also fine, sir.
Okay. Oh. So coming back to the issues I have been discussing, the relevance of a good representation in the assessment proceedings for an effective appeal is what I want to emphasize, to put it in short. Now, coming to the appeals before the tribunal, before going forward with the procedure, practice, and the art of representation, do's, do nots, and all these intricacies, I just want to elaborate upon a fundamental difference between an appeal before the Commissioner of Income Tax Appeals and an appeal before the Income Tax Appellate Tribunal. As you are all aware, the appeal before the C8 appeals arises from the assessment order and is filed before the Commissioner of Income Tax Appeals, whereas the appeal before the tribunal arises from mostly from the order of the learned C8 appeals and is filed before the Appellate Tribunal. This is a fundamental aspect. In fact, I am not onto it. The most important difference is when you want to file an appeal before the C8 appeals, you have to be very, very cautious. The learned speaker might have already discussed this topic yesterday. Just I want to briefly touch upon this, that the learned C8 appeals has the power of enhancement. So therefore, one should not immediately jump to a decision that once I have an assessment order, some addition is made by the assessing officer, I will automatically file an appeal for the SSC. This should not be the thought process. You should think more than twice to take a decision while filing an appeal before the learned C8 appeals. Whereas when it comes to filing an appeal before the tribunal, there is no such risk as such. The basic principle underlying is that where a person who is approaching the tribunal by filing an appeal cannot be put to a worse position than he was before. That is the most important principle that I want to emphasize. Meaning, suppose there are two editions made by the assessing officer. C8 appeals has granted relief for one edition. You want to file appeal for the balance edition. Either this appeal will be allowed or this appeal will be dismissed by the tribunal. There is no risk of the relief already given by the C8 appeal being taken away from you. Whereas when you file an appeal against an assessment order, there is a great risk that if the assessing officer has made addition of 5 lakhs, and if you have chosen to file an appeal, it may result in finally a total addition of 50 lakhs also. If you have time to go through the case laws and precedents, you will find many cases where the C8 appeals have exercised the power of enhancement, which has caused great damage to the SSCs. So this could have been easily avoided by taking a decision not to file the appeal before the CAT appeals. And another risk is when you file an appeal, if you don't file an appeal, still there is a small threat in the form of a revision by the commissioner under section 263. But there is a time limit for revision under section 263. Whereas if you have filed an appeal and if the appeal is pending for say more than 4 or 5 years, even after 4 or 5 years also, the CAT appeal, when he is finally taking a decision on the appeal, he can issue a notice of enhancement. To put it in a different manner, there is no time limit for the learned CAT appeals to issue a notice of enhancement. The only time limit is the disposal of the appeal. You can be rest assured that you are not receiving a notice of enhancement only when the appeal order from the learned CAT appeal is received by the SSC. I am not saying that in each and every case, the CAT appeals will enhance the assessments, but that is where you have to exercise your professional judgment and take a conscious decision whether you are helping the cause of the SSC or whether you are putting the SSC to a greater hardship by taking a decision to file an appeal against the order of the CAT appeal. In continuation of the same, I would also like to add that CAT appeal can also initiate penalty proceedings if the AO has not initiated, and he can levy penalty. And suppose there is a point or an issue for enhancement, if it has not been noticed by the CAT appeal, but if the AO has noticed it, and if the time limit for 263 has expired, AO can also request the CAT appeals to issue a notice of enhancement in writing. And if the CAT appeal refuses, then against that refusal of the CAT appeal, the department can file an appeal before the tribunal. So this is the underlying danger when an appeal is pending before the learned CAT appeals. So therefore, my word of caution is that the appeal before the CAT appeal should not be filed in a haste, whereas an appeal before the tribunal, you don't need to worry. You cannot be put to a worse position than what you were before by filing an appeal before the tribunal. This is the most important difference between the appeal before the CAT appeal and appeal before the tribunal. Now coming to the constitution of the tribunal has come into being in the year 1941, and the objective of the tribunal is Sulabh Nyay and Satvar Nyay. That means simple justice and quick justice. These are the two principles based on which the tribunal functions. So therefore, wherever there is even a small arguable case, it's always better to file an appeal before the tribunal, because the tribunal members are expected to be liberal, and wherever some case is there for the SSC, they are expected to grant relief to the SSC. The functioning of the tribunal is that all over India, there are benches. Each bench, it is normally called a division bench, where there is one accountant member and one judicial member. Accountant member comes from the background of either chartered accountancy profession or from an experience in the income tax department, that is an officer of the income tax department. Then the judicial member, either he is an advocate or he has worked in the judiciary. This is the background of the members sitting on the bench. Now, these benches are normally total 4 to 5 types. One is division bench. Division bench is where 2 members sit on the bench, they hear the appeal and they take the decision. Now there is something called SMC bench. This is single member case, where the income assessed is less than 50 lakhs rupees. It is assigned as an SMC case. Now this case can be heard by single member. 2 members need not hear this particular appeal. Then there is a third member bench. This third member bench is where two members are sitting on the bench, that is a division bench, and if they do not concur with each other, that means one member wants to allow the appeal, the other member wants to dismiss the appeal, then they will write their own orders. The second order, the first order is written by the person to whom the case is allotted. Then the second member writes another order, which is known as dissenting order. And because there are now two orders, the president appoints a third member, and the third member will sit alone and he will hear the case once again. And then he will either concur with the accountant member or the judicial member. This is called a third member bench. Then there is also one bench called special bench. When there is an issue of relevance and importance across the country, that means this issue is frequently coming up and the tribunals are taking conflicting decisions. That means tribunal at Hyderabad takes one decision, whereas tribunal at Bangalore takes another kind of decision. Then the president can constitute a special bench so that whatever decision is taken by the special bench, all the benches across the country have to follow that particular decision, so that there are no different decisions coming on the same issue from different benches of the tribunal. So this is what is called special bench. So these are the various types of benches that we have. Now coming to the, am I audible?
Yeah, yes, sir. Yes, sir. You are audible. Please go on.
Okay, okay. Then coming to the appeals that can be filed before the appellate tribunal, the sections that you find in the Income Tax Act with regard to the Income Tax Appellate Tribunal are only 250, 253, 254, and 255, total 5 sections only. Out of that, the relevant sections for you are 253 and 254. These are the only 2 sections that are relevant for us. Now, section 253 clearly specifies what are all the orders against which appeal can be filed before the Income Tax Appellate Tribunal. So therefore, when you have an order before you and you want to take a decision whether an appeal can be filed for the tribunal or not, provision of the can be filed. Mostly,
Sir, your voice is
all
getting
the
breaked, sir.
orders passed. I am.
No, just now, sir. Just now. For the last 10 seconds, the voice is broken. You may also join from your cell phone.
Now BSNL is connected. I think the problem will be solved.
Yes, now it's clear. Now it's clear.
So the mostly all the orders passed by the commissioners are appealable before the tribunal, but there are a few exceptions which I want to mention before you. The most common order which you all might have recently come across is that in the case of charitable organizations, if there is a delay in filing Form 10 or if there is a delay in filing Form number 10B, you can approach the Commissioner of Income Tax Exemptions for condonation of the delay. Suppose the Commissioner of Income Tax refuses to condone the delay and passes an order to that effect, that is not an order which you can file appeal before the tribunal. Because I have received a few cases where the chartered accountants have already filed appeals before the tribunal from their office, and thereafter they have sent the matter to me for representation. But I have no choice but to concede before the tribunal that that is not an appealable order. And therefore, by mentioning the same fact, the tribunal has dismissed the appeals. So therefore, if the Commissioner of Income Tax is not condoning the delay, not only in this context, there are some other contexts where Section 119 provides for condonation of delay, like delay in filing the return, claiming refund and such other instances. So all those cases, the order refusing to condone the delay, you can file an appeal only, you can file only a writ petition before the Honorable High Court. You cannot come knock the doors of the Income Tax Appellate Tribunal. Then another situation is that once the demand is raised, nowadays, because of the very huge demands that the assessing officers are raising indiscriminately, it is next to impossible for the taxpayer to pay even 20% of the demand raised. So therefore, the stay petition is getting rejected by the assessing officer. Now, the next course of action for the SSC is to approach the Principal Commissioner of Income Tax to grant stay on liberal terms. Because AO's hands are tied up, he cannot take a decision to grant stay for any amount less than, for payment of any amount less than 20% of the total demand. So when this petition filed before the Commissioner of Income Tax is dismissed by him, that means rejecting your stay petition, you cannot come to tribunal. It is also an administrative order. So therefore, you have to only file a writ petition before the High Court. Many a times I receive a phone call asking me to file a stay petition before the tribunal when the appeal is pending before the CIT appeal. It is not possible. The tribunal can entertain a stay petition only if and only if an appeal is pending before the tribunal. And one more important aspect is the power of the tribunal to grant stay is now curtailed because of an amendment brought in section 254 of the Income Tax Act, whereby the tribunal can grant stay only subject to payment of 20%. Though it is a highly debatable issue as to whether the power of the tribunal can be curtailed in this fashion, but at least Visakhapatnam bench, they are of the view that they are the creatures of the statute. That means the tribunal has come into being only because of the provisions of the Income Tax Act. So therefore, they cannot pass any order overriding the provisions of the Income Tax Act. Therefore, they are insisting that only if 20% is paid, then only they are hearing the stay petition. Even hearing is not being granted for a stay petition unless 20% is paid upfront. So therefore, always it is better if you can thrash out the stay aspect before the assessing officer himself in an amicable manner. There are no fixed guidelines in this regard, but that is a practical approach that we have to follow. Then another interesting situation most of the times I have come across is that the revisional order passed by the commissioner under section 263, many a times the professionals are not giving due importance to the contents of the order passed under section 263. As a matter of consequence, the assessing officer takes up the assessment proceedings and then he passes an order under 143.3 read with section 263 of the Act. Now, they prefer an appeal before the CIT appeals against the assessment order. Now, what CIT appeal says, in the order passed by the Commissioner of Income Tax under section 263, he has given a specific direction to the assessing officer to make a particular disallowance, say under section 40A3, and make an addition of say 10 lakhs rupees. So therefore, how can I differ with the view taken by the Commissioner of Income Tax, Principal Commissioner of Income Tax, and grant relief in this particular case? According to me, the learned CIT appeals is 100% right in saying so, because when an officer above the rank of the assessing officer has given a specific direction to the assessing officer to make a particular addition, the CIT appeal is helpless. He cannot grant any relief. So therefore, what is to be done in those cases is that when a specific direction is given by the commissioner under section 263, directly against the order under 263, an appeal has to be filed before the tribunal. If you fail to file that appeal in time, then by the time the consequential order is passed, by the time the C8 appeal says that the appeal against the consequential order is not maintainable, there would be a huge delay, and many a times the tribunals are not inclined to condone such a huge delay. So therefore, this is one important aspect when it comes to the orders which are appealable before the tribunal. I'm only just trying to cover those exceptional issues. In a routine manner, most of the orders can be straight away, you can file an appeal before the tribunal. Now the appeals filed before the tribunal are of various kinds. One is, an edition is made by the assessing officer and C8 appeals sustains that particular edition. Therefore, SSC files further appeal before the tribunal. This is a normal appeal that is filed before the tribunal. The another situation is, assessing officer makes 2 editions. C8 appeal grants relief for 1 edition. The other edition is sustained by the C8 appeal. Now, SSC department files an appeal to the extent relief is granted by the C8 appeal, and SSC files appeal to the extent relief is not granted by the C8. Now, these are, though independently they are 2 separate appeals, they are normally known as cross appeals. Cross appeals because both appeals refer to the very same order of the C8 appeal. Therefore, these are called cross appeals. Now, there is a third category. Now, imagine a situation that 2 editions are made by the C8 appeals. One edition is 50 lakhs rupees. The other edition is only 3 lakhs rupees. That is made by the assessing office. Now, C8 appeal deletes the edition of 50 lakhs, but sustains the edition of 3 lakhs. Now, SSC may think that I got substantial relief from the C8 appeal. Only 3 lakhs rupees edition is sustained. Hardly the tax would amount to maximum 1 lakh or 2 lakhs rupees with interest. So I would pay this amount and let the matter be closed. So therefore, no appeal is filed by the SSC against the decision rendered by the C8 appeal with regard to the 3 lakhs rupees. Now, after some time, the department files an appeal against the order of the C8 appeal granting relief, and a notice is served on the SSC to the informing him that the department has preferred an appeal against the order of the C8 appeal. Now, even though 60 days from the date of the C8 appeal order has already lapsed, still SSC can still choose to file an appeal against that 3 lakhs rupees edition, which originally he has chosen not to file. So this is called a cross objection. Effectively, it is equal to a normal appeal filed by the SSC, but the 2 exceptions are that the time limit counts from the date the SSC receives an intimation that the department has preferred an appeal. This is one basic difference between a normal appeal and a cross objection. The second difference is that the normal case time limit is 60 days from the date of receipt of the order of the C8 appeal. Whereas for a cross objection, the time limit is only 30 days. 30 days from the date when the SSC receives communication that the department has filed an appeal. So this is the fundamental difference between an appeal, a cross appeal, and a cross objection. Now there is a 4th category also, which is very, very useful, and it becomes handy. It comes handy in some of the situations. In fact, this option was exercised by us a number of times. What happens is that nowadays the tribunal cases are the pendency in tribunal has come down. So therefore, the cases are coming for hearing very quickly. But in earlier days, if an appeal is filed before the tribunal, that hearing used to come after 9 months or 1 year, like that. So what happens is that by the time the SSC or the chartered account of the SSC approaches the council for representation before the tribunal, the 30 days time for filing cross objection is already over. Now, C8 appeal has given relief because it is a department appeal. But C8 appeal dismissed the legal ground, but allowed the relief on merits. For example, it is a reopened assessment and an addition was made, 40 lakhs addition was made. C8 appeal dismisses the ground contesting the validity of notice issued under section 140. But he finds merit in the argument that the addition is not sustainable. Therefore, he deletes the addition of 40 lakhs. Now, when the matter comes before the tribunal, the SSC has come to the council representing before the tribunal much after 30 days has elapsed from the date of receiving communication that department has filed an appeal. So therefore, there is no scope for filing any cross objection. But the council observes that on merits, the case of the SSC is very weak. Though the C8 appeal has granted relief, but the tribunal may not be inclined to uphold the order of the C8 appeal, and there is a likelihood of the order of the C8 appeal being reversed. In such a case, since the time for filing cross objection has already expired, you can invoke one rule, that is Rule 27 of the Income Tax Appellate Tribunal rules. What this rule says is that though the SSC has not filed an appeal before the tribunal, he can still support the order of the C8 appeal on a ground which is decided against him. This is what the rule says. So what does it mean? Here SSC has not filed cross objection. If had he filed a cross objection, he would have raised a ground saying that 148 notice itself is not maintained. But he has not raised that ground. But C8 appeal has given relief, 40 lakhs he has deleted. Now you want to support the order of the C8 appeal. So you can support the appeal, decision of the C8 appeal on a ground decided against you. What is the ground decided against you? The ground decided against you is that 148 is not maintainable. So therefore, you can now file a petition under Rule 27 saying that C8 appeal is not justified in holding that 148 notice is maintainable. To put it the other way, the notice under 148 itself is invalid. So therefore, assessment proceedings are void ab initio. This is the ground you can take by filing a petition under Rule 27. And if this particular ground is considered and allowed, then your risk is mitigated. Then tribunal won't enter into the merits of the case. You don't need to worry much about the merits of the case. So therefore, it is a very, very important rule that comes handy. And therefore, it is also to be considered as one option of filing an appeal. It is as good as an option for filing an appeal as far as the SSC is concerned. Now, with regard to the same example, let us say two additions were made. One addition is 40 lakhs and the other addition is 15 lakhs, or say 12 lakhs. Total 52 lakhs additions were made. C8 appeal gave relief for 40 lakhs. 12 lakhs addition he has sustained. 148 ground also he has dismissed. Now SSC has chosen not to file any appeal because he felt that he doesn't have much ground with regard to 12 lakhs, or he wanted to pay tax and close the matter. So therefore, SSC has not filed any appeal. Department filed appeal against 40 lakhs relief. The SSC, for whatever may be the reason, has not filed any cross objection. Now 30 days is over. Same example I am extending. Now the matter has come before the council. Now he wants to invoke Rule 27 and wants to file a petition. No worry, he can file. Now, what is the maximum benefit he can get by filing this particular petition? This is the most important aspect. What the rule says is, you can only support the order of the C8. You cannot get more relief than what C8 has already granted. So that means, even if your 148 ground is allowed, the relief you will get is only 40 lakhs. You will not get relief for the remaining 12 lakhs. This is the most important aspect and very, very confusing matter also. Many times, many of the practicing professionals and even departmental officers, and most of the time even the tribunal members also find it difficult to interpret this particular rule 27. But this is what this particular rule says. This is an option to the SSC to raise a legal ground which was decided against him by the CIT appeals at any stage of the proceedings before the tribunal, irrespective of any time limit, but with a stipulation or a condition that the maximum relief that the SSC can get is only the relief which was already granted by the CIT appeal, and it cannot extend further and give more relief to the SSC simply because his legal ground is now allowed by the tribunal. So that is how we have 4 different types of appeals that are there before the tribunal. One is the main appeal, then this cross appeal, then the cross objection, and a petition under Rule 27, whereby you can raise a legal ground which was decided against you by the CIT. Now here there are 2 interesting academic interest I am sharing with you. It may so happen that the department files an appeal. Because department appeal is there, then only you can stand up and file Rule 27. If there is no appeal by the department, there is no question of invoking Rule 27. So here there is an interesting situation that the department files an appeal. But unfortunately, that appeal is signed by some officer who is not authorized to sign it. Or there are some technical lapses in the appeal. There is a huge delay, which the tribunal does not want to condone. So therefore, if the appeal of the tribunal is dismissed, if the appeal of the department is dismissed by the tribunal on a technical ground that the appeal itself is not maintainable, then how to count the time limit of 30 days? Now the time limit of 30 days for filing cross objection, it starts from the date you have received a notice that the department has filed an appeal. Now it so happens that the appeal of the department itself is not maintainable. Can you still take shelter under the fact that the department has filed an appeal? So therefore, I would count 30 days from the date of receipt of communication that the department has filed an appeal. The answer is no. When the appeal of the department is held as not maintainable, then the time limit starts from the original order of the learned CIT appeal. At the most, you can consider it as an appeal filed with a delay from your side. And if the tribunal is inclined to condone the delay, then only your appeal will be heard. Otherwise, your appeal will not be considered as a cross objection, and the time limit provided under the Act with reference to a normal cross objection cannot be extended to such a situation. Though it is a very rare circumstance, but for academic interest, I have shared that issue. There is another interesting issue with regard to this. The time limits for filing appeals before the tribunal on the part of the revenue have been on the increase from time to time. So initially there was a limit of 10 lakhs, then it increased to 25 lakhs. Now it is 50 lakhs. Now department files an appeal when the limit is 25 lakhs. That means the tax effect is 30 lakhs when the time at the time when the department has filed the appeal, and at that time the upper limit is only 25 lakhs, so the appeal is maintainable. So immediately you have responded, within 30 days you have filed a cross objection. Now the monetary limit is revised upwards. It is increased to 50 lakhs and made applicable to all the pending appeals. So therefore, what would be the fate of the department appeal? Because the monetary limit is enhanced from 25 lakhs to 50 lakhs rupees, the appeal filed by the department will be automatically dismissed on the ground that the monetary limit is less than 50 lakhs. But now what happens to your cross objection? The tribunals have held that the cross objection is still maintainable, even though the department appeal is dismissed on the ground of monetary limit, and the cross objection can be independently heard and decided upon. This is another important aspect. Now the time limit for filing the appeal before the tribunal, as I have already mentioned, for a normal appeal, it is 60 days from the date of receiving the order of the learned C8 appeal. And in respect of a cross objection, it is 30 days from the date of receiving the communication from the tribunal. The department has filed an appeal. For Rule 27, there is no time limit. Till the disposal of the appeal, you can anytime file a petition under Rule 27. Now, what happens when there is a delay in filing the appeal? Now, this is another very, very important aspect where many a times I find some fault with our professional friends also. The appeals are filed before the Commissioner of Income Tax Appeals. The order is uploaded, but for whatever may be the constraints and whatever may be the reasons, the order, the passing of the order is not taken cognizance of, or even it was taken cognizance of, it is not acted upon, and it is entrusted to us with a delay. Now, one important thing I would like to mention before you all is that it is not our right to file a delay with a condonation petition. It is purely the discretion of the tribunal to condone the delay or not to condone the delay. Therefore, there is every likelihood that is a very, very good case of the SSC can be dismissed by the tribunal simply because there is no sufficient cause for filing the appeal with a delay. Recently, one of the appeals filed by us met the same fate. There was an order passed by the Commissioner of Income Tax Exemptions, an ex parte order, saying that show cause notice was issued, but SSC has not replied. Therefore, the permanent registration as provided now under the Act for a charitable organization was denied. Order was passed not granting permanent registration to the SSC. And there is a huge delay in taking note of this particular order. And the tribunal was of the view that there is no sufficient cause for the delay. I have tried my best to convince the bench about the change in the provisions relating to charitable institutions, about the permanent damage that would be caused to the SSC by refusing a matter at the threshold itself, because never in their life that institution will be again be able to go for permanent registration or even provisional registration. It is deemed to be dissolved as a charitable institution, and the entire surplus can also be subject to tax under the special provisions. In spite of explaining all these things, what they have said is that the appeal has to be filed in time, and you have to explain the delay properly. Since there is the delay is not explained properly, we are not inclined to hear this appeal. We are dismissing it in limine on the ground that delay is not condoned. So therefore, I feel very pity for that particular SSC, because had that appeal been filed in time, even without opening the argument, the tribunal would have simply set aside the matter to the Commissioner of Income Tax Exemptions for granting a fresh opportunity to the SSC to submit their replies and the CIT to consider it on merits. Only because of the delay, this appeal is getting dismissed by the tribunal. So therefore, with the due diligence, one should act upon, and as far as possible, we should ensure that the appeals are filed in time. In fact, last month till last for the last 30-40 days, all our team has worked late hours to ensure that none of the appeals received in our office, none of the orders received in our office from the consultants for filing before C8 appeal or before the tribunal, there is no delay. We have tried to ensure that there is no delay. If we have received it already with a delay, then we can't help it. Otherwise, we have tried to ensure that appeal is filed without any delay. Why I am saying this is because a matter otherwise having good merits should not get dismissed simply on the ground that delay is not properly explained. So it is of utmost importance that we file the appeals in time. Whoever is interested in taking up this particular part of the profession of practicing in this area, appeal area, please ensure that the appeals are filed in time. Now, be that as it may, it is not necessary that in each and every case, wherever there is a delay, automatically the tribunal will dismiss the appeal. It is not so. The delay has to be properly explained. If there is a sufficient cause on the part of the SSC in filing the appeal with a delay, the tribunal will certainly condone the delay. Now, what is sufficient cause and how the delay is to be explained? This is a very, very important aspect. I have found many a times the delay condonation petitions before the C8 appeals filed by other consultants are in a very routine and mechanical manner without adhering to the guidelines laid down by the Honorable Supreme Court. So first of all, the most important point is that entire delay has to be explained. If the delay is 120 days, you have to explain the entire 120 days period of delay. Now, there is other side of this very same coin. Does it mean that you have to explain each and every day's delay? First day, SSC had fever. Second day, SSC had fever. Fifth day, SSC's relation expired. No, it is not like that. Though entire 120 days period of delay has to be explained, it is not necessary that every day's delay has to be explained. Now, what does it mean then? What it means is that every milestone has to be explained in the petition. For example, SSC suffered from fever. How many days? There will be a medical certificate, say 15 days. Now, okay, 15 days you have explained. Entire 15 days gets explained for one single reason, that SSC suffered from fever. Then what about, let us say the total delay is 25 days. What about the remaining 10 days? Just because first 15 days is explained by way of fever, automatically the remaining 10 days will not be condoned. This is one important aspect which is not taken into consideration while drafting the delay condonation petition. So therefore, try to get this particular principle into your minds, that entire delay has to be properly explained. Not necessary that every day's delay has to be explained. From milestone to milestone, you have to explain the delay, and there should not be any portion of the delay which remains unexplained. Now, one very common reason that is taken by most of the petitions is that my chartered accountant has not informed me, or I have given the order to my chartered accountant, but he has not filed the appeal in time. Unfortunately, though there is a Bombay High Court decision which says that if there is a lapse on the part of the consultant, on account of that lapse, the SSC should not suffer and the delay should be condoned. A liberal view has to be taken. But generally, tribunals, particularly Visakhapatnam Tribunal, they are of the view that if there is a lapse on the part of the consultant, it is between the SSC and the consultant. SSC may file a case against the consultant, but that won't be a reason for the SSC to say that you condone my delay. So therefore, the tribunals are somehow not accepting this lame excuse that my consultant has not helped me in time, therefore there is a delay. So therefore, try to avoid taking such reasons. Though it is a open forum, and I know that my speech is getting recorded, but still I would venture to say that what you are stating in the petition need not be the same fact which has actually happened. But the fact which you are stating in the petition should be supported by proper evidence. This is most important. It may be really true that the chartered accountant somehow was busy otherwise, and he took 100 days for taking a decision whether to file an appeal or not. But don't take that particular reason in the petition. You might have been hale and healthy. There was no sickness at all, but you have a known person who can give you a good certificate with supporting evidence that there was a sickness and you were advised to take bed rest. This would convince the bench rather than the actual fact that there was actually the delay was on account of the lapse on the part of the chartered accountant. So therefore, I do not want to extend it further. I only want to conclude by saying that every day's delay need not be explained, but from milestone to milestone, the delay should be explained. And where some self-serving, where some facts which are known only to the SSC are there, which cannot be supplemented with any external evidence, the affidavit is a must. And in the affidavit, it should be explained in detail as to what are those circumstances that have led to delay in filing the appeal. But as far as possible, try to bring in a reason which can be verified with a third party. This is always a better way of getting the delay condoned. That is what it is about delay condoned. Now, the filing of appeal starts with filing of form number 36. It is the statutory form as prescribed in the Income Tax Act. So therefore, appeal has to be filed in form number 36. Now, there are two common mistakes that we come across when this particular form number 36 is filled in. When the SSC is filing the appeal, the respondent is always the assessing officer. Many a times, the respondent's name is taken as Commissioner of Income Tax Appeals. Because most of the time, the appeal is filed against the order of the CAT appeal. Normally, it sounds to our mind that the respondent should be Commissioner of Income Tax Appeals. No, the rules clearly provide that the respondent should always be the income tax officer who has passed the assessment order. That is one important aspect which has to be taken note of. Then the second important aspect is that the order, the section under which the order appealed against is passed. This is also most of the time filled in very wrongly only. Many a times it is being filled as 143.3. It is not so, because the appeal before the tribunal is against the order of the CAT. So the respondent is assessing officer, but the order appealed against is the order passed under section 250 by the Commissioner of Income Tax Appeals. These are the two important points that have to be taken note of. Then another important point is, as far as appellant is concerned, it may so happen that subsequent to the order being passed by the CAT appeal, but before filing the appeal before the tribunal, the SSC expires. Then the appeal cannot be filed in the name of a dead person. So therefore, the legal representative has to be brought on record, and the cause title should say that so and so person, legal representative of deceased person. His name should be mentioned. Suppose Venkatrao died, Subbarao is representing him. Subbarao, legal representative of Venkatrao. That should be the cause title as far as appellant is concerned. And along with this appeal, you should also file the death certificate of the deceased SSC. You should also file an affidavit from the legal heirs or the family members, wherein they authorize this particular person to file the appeal on behalf of the deceased. This is a compulsory procedure. It is normally known as bringing the legal heir on record. So it is also the very same situation. Suppose the appeal is filed by the SSC when he is alive, but after filing the appeal, SSC expires. If you do not bring this fact to the notice of the tribunal, and if you get an order in the name of the deceased person, that order is null and void. Please note this particular point. So therefore, it is the bounden duty of the person who is handling the matter of the SSC to bring it to the notice of the counsel who is representing before the tribunal and ensure that the cause title is changed. The appellant's name should be changed. Now, how can it happen? It can happen only by filing a revised form number 30. So therefore, two situations. One is SSC expired prior to filing appeal before the tribunal. Then the legal representative himself will file the appeal. Cause title clearly mentions the legal representative as the appellant. But SSC files the appeal when he is alive. SSC expires. Then also revised form number 36 has to be filed. The legal representative has to be brought on record. This is a compulsory procedure. Otherwise, as I have already mentioned, the order of the tribunal passed in the name of the dead person becomes null and void. It is of no use to the SSC. Now, another important aspect is most of the times I really do not understand what happens. The C8 appeal order is sent to us. We prepare an appeal. We file the appeal. When the notice is sent to the address that is already there before the assessing officer or the C8 appeal, the notice gets returned unserved. That means the address of the SSC has changed. So you cannot or you should not give an address which is not the current address of the SSC. It may so happen that you have filed appeal with the current address only, but subsequently there is a change in address of the SSC. Then again you should file a revised form number 36 mentioning the current address of the SSC. This is a compulsory procedure as prescribed in the Appellate Tribunal rules. So therefore, both these situations, that is death of the SSC, subsequent to filing of the appeal, change of address subsequent to filing of the appeal, both these situations demand that a revised form number 36 is being filed before the tribunal. Then the most important part of the form number 36 is the grounds of appeal. Remaining columns are mostly very routine columns except the two points which I have already highlighted. Now, when it comes to filling the grounds of appeal, or technically it is known as raising the grounds of appeal, one should be very careful. We find many times, see what happens is the appeals are filed because of the time limit initially by the chartered accountants or the tax consultant. Then the matter is entrusted to us for representation before the tribunal. At that stage, we find many times that the grounds are very, very elaborate, argumentative, run into number of pages, though the issue is only one. Suppose addition is made 30 lakhs rupees, addition is made towards cash deposits in the bank account during demonetization period. One simple ground, you have to say that learned C8 appeal is not justified in sustaining the addition of rupees 30 lakhs made by the assessing officer towards unexplained cash deposits in the bank account. You can also mention the section under which the addition is made, under section 69A or whatever it is. That's all. There is an anxiety, I do not know, there is an anxiety on the part of the consultants to include as many arguments as possible in the grounds of appeal, saying that the learned C8 appeal ought to have considered that SSC was into the business of some cloth business, and the deposits in the bank account represented the sale proceeds of the SSC. Say C8 appeal ought to have considered that the turnover of the SSC is supported by GST returns filed before the authorities. So like this, as many arguments possible, all those arguments are included, and many a times at least half a dozen case laws are also quoted in the grounds of appeal. Please remember that tribunal will not decide the appeal if the grounds of appeal are elaborate, if the grounds of appeal are argumentative, if the grounds of appeal include any case laws. Then what is happening? The case gets adjourned. Suppose the same person comes all the way, let us say from Vijayawada or some other place, Nellore or somewhere, to Visakhapatnam tribunal for representing his matter. Lot of traveling expenses are incurred, boarding and lodging and all those things. Then finally, when the hearing is taken up, the tribunal simply says, your argument, your grounds are elaborate. These are, you have to revise the grounds of appeal. Unnecessarily, you have to travel back. Again, you have to take out your time. Again, incur traveling expenses. Again, come to the tribunal. So therefore, It is not that only when we are representing we face inconvenience. Even whosoever is representing, unless this particular aspect is taken care of, that will always end up in a disappointment when the appeal comes up for first time for the hearing before the tribunal. Must and should they will direct the counsel to revise the grounds, then only they will hear the appeal. So therefore, the grounds of appeal should be carefully drafted. Now, next important aspect with regard to grounds of appeal is that all the issues that you are contesting should be raised in the grounds of appeal. Tribunal won't assume that you wanted to argue all the issues that were raised before the CAT. With regard to one particular edition, you might have raised 4 types of argument, 4 different issues. Let us say you might have said that 148 notice itself is invalid. You might have said that assessment is barred by limitation. You might have also said that the edition is not maintainable on merits. You might have also argued that that particular section under which edition is made is not applicable in that particular case. So because edition is made under a wrong section, edition is not maintainable. So therefore, one single edition would have, you might have defended before the CAT appeal under various arguments. All these issues compulsorily should come in the tribunal. This is completely opposite to what I have already told. Earlier, what I have told, your grounds should not be argumentative. But that does not mean you omit all the issues and simply only mention that so-and-so edition made by the sustained by the CAT appeal is not justified. Therefore, I am in appeal. This cannot be a ground of appeal at all. So therefore, each and every issue on the basis of which you want to say that the edition is not maintainable, each and every issue should be represented by a separate specific ground of appeal. This is the most important aspect that you should keep in mind while drafting the grounds of appeal. Now, the next question that is supplementary to this is, what happens? Suppose that you have not filed grounds of appeal properly. That means you have to raise actually 3 issues in the grounds of appeal, but you have raised only 2 issues. Or there were 3 editions, all 3 editions contested before the CAT appeal, but due to inadvertence, you have contested only 2 editions before the tribunal. Is it the end of the matter? Is the Form 36 filed conclusive? Is the fate of the SSC sealed on the basis of the grounds raised before the tribunal? Answer is clear no. There is a scope for the SSC to revise the grounds of appeal at any point of time before the hearing is taken up, or even in the course of hearing, you can make a prayer that the grounds were not properly drafted. All the issues have not been addressed in the grounds of appeal. Therefore, you can request the tribunal to grant time for filing revised grounds of appeal, and you can come up with a revised ground of appeal. Now, another aspect is additional ground of appeal. This is completely different. My friend Falguna Kumar Garu might have covered this aspect when it comes to dealing with appeals before CAT appeal. But still, briefly, I would like to address this aspect, that an additional ground is a ground which was not raised before the assessing officer or even before the CAT appeal. For example, in the same grounds which I have just narrated just now, the assessment is barred by limitation. This ground you have not raised either before the assessing officer or before the CAT appeal. Now, you should not include this ground in the original form number 36. The form number 36 originally filed should contain only those grounds which were already taken before the CAT appeals or before the assessing office. Now, what is the remedy? The remedy is, after filing the form number 36, you can move a separate petition for admission of additional ground of appeal. This is the remedy. Now, while filing the petition for admission of additional ground, the most important criteria is that it is not that each and every legal issue raised by way of each and every additional ground raised by you will be accepted by the tribunal. There are 2 important conditions with regard to this. One is, the ground now you want to raise as an additional ground should compulsorily be a legal ground. This is the first important aspect. The second important aspect is the facts relating to that particular ground should already be on record either before the assessing officer or before the CAT. Now you want to support your legal ground by bringing in some new facts which were not there before the assessing officer or before the CAT appeal. Most of the times the tribunal may not admit your additional ground and they will simply say that this additional ground is not maintainable. So therefore, these are the two conditions. The issue should be legal in nature. Factual issues which you have already considered before the lower authorities, now you cannot bring up by way of an additional ground. For example, 3 additions made by the assessing officer. You contested only 2 additions before the CAT appeal. That's all. Before tribunal also, you can defend only those 2 additions. The 3rd addition you cannot bring into picture while filing an appeal before the tribunal. But all the 3 issues you have raised before the CAT appeal, before the tribunal also in the form number 36. But there is additionally one legal ground whereby you want to defend all these 3 additions. That legal ground can be raised by filing a petition for admission of additional. This is the most important aspect as far as additional ground is concerned. So this is all about form number 36. The due care to be taken while filling in the details of the respondent, and the appellant should be only legal representative if the SSC has died, and the order appealed against should always be mentioned as section 250 unless it is a order passed under section 263 or an order passed under 12A rejecting your application for registration. Subject to those exceptions, normally it is order against CAT appeal means it is 250, section 250 is to be mentioned. Now coming to the representation before the ITAT, as my learned friend has already mentioned, definitely it is an art. The art of it is an art. At the same time, it is also a science. We have read this many times, whether a particular subject is a science or art. Most of the time, it ends up by saying that it is a science and also an art. So, like in the same manner, a representation before the tribunal, it is also a science and an art. So, what are the basic skills that are required to enable you to represent before the tribunal? The first and foremost thing that you require is at least a basic knowledge, if not an in-depth knowledge, of all the provisions of the Income Tax Act and the interrelationship between these provisions. Only one issue is there before you. So just you want to read that particular section and you want to come and appear before the tribunal, that is not going to help you. So therefore, a complete awareness of the basic provisions of the Income Tax Act is the fundamental requirement for representation before the Income Tax. And the second important thing is you should be getting updated with regard to what is happening around. Most of the time, the courts across the country or the tribunals at the lower level, they are rendering decisions with regard to many of the controversial issues. So unless you are aware of these recent developments, you won't be able to effectively represent the case of the SSC before the tribunal. So therefore, updation of your knowledge with regard to the decisions being rendered by the various high courts and Supreme Court and the tribunals across the country is also very much necessary if you want to master the art of representing the appeals, either before CAT appeals or before the Income Tax Appellate Tribunal. Then of course, the third one is the art of drafting. Most of the times, this work before any appellate authority, whether it's CAT appeal or tribunal or even high court for that matter, most of the times it is mostly paperwork. Actual representation, when it comes to boils down to actual representation, the case may be getting complete in 5 minutes or 10 minutes. But before that, the paperwork that you are going to do, the number of petitions you are filing, all these things, the written submissions you have filed, all these things will end up into volumes. So therefore, unless you have a good drafting skill, you won't be able to get good success as a consultant in this particular area of practice. So therefore, these are the three important requirements that are essential for getting success in the field of practicing before the appellate authorities. Now, just here, I want to leave a word of caution. Now, as you are aware, there are two types of cases that come up before the appellate authorities. One is a case involving purely facts. And the second one is a case involving some legal issues. Normally, these are known as a case of fact and case of law. You should be aware of the fact that when it comes to a case of fact, the tribunal is the final fact-finding authority. So once a tribunal says or gives a particular finding with reference to a particular fact, the doors for the SSC are closed. You cannot travel further to the High Court and contest the order of the CAT. For example, 5 unsecured loans are there. You have filed confirmation letters, which are devoid of any details. No supporting evidence was filed. So therefore, CAT appeal dismisses the appeal and you come to the tribunal. Tribunal maybe allows one of the additions, one of the creditors, but other says that remaining creditors not properly explained and therefore sustains the addition. Now, because tribunal is giving a fact finding that SSC failed to satisfactorily explain the genuineness, creditworthiness, and the identity of the creditors, the matter is closed once for all. Except in very, very rare circumstances, this matter cannot be taken up further before the Honorable High Court. So therefore, if you are interested in taking up appeals before the tribunal, be aware of this fact. This imposes on us a higher responsibility because if you fail to render justice for the SSC, if you fail to get a favorable order from the tribunal, SSC will be put to permanent loss. So this is the word of caution I want to leave as far as representation before the tribunal is concerned. Be that as it may, when it comes to the actual practice of representation before the tribunal, the important points that you have to keep note of is that always give importance to the facts of the case. What is the basic fact with regard to the additions? What were the facts narrated by the assessing officer? To what extent assessing officer misstated the facts? To what extent learned CAT appeals might have twisted the facts of the case? These are the most important points you have to read. Only when you completely digest these facts of the case, then only you are ready to represent the matter before the tribunal. Many a times, we find some newcomers into the tribunal just harping upon some case law and trying to get relief on the basis of the case law. See, case law is the last thing that you should look at. The most important thing is the facts of the case. If the facts are very weak, even if you have a very good decision rendered by some other court, the appellate forum always tries to distinguish that particular decision and always tries to support the case of the revenue. So therefore, if you fail to represent the facts properly before the tribunal, if you fail to convince the tribunal that the SSC has a very good case on merits, many a times you may be having a good case law in your hand, but it won't come handy for you and you may end up in disappointment. So therefore, it is called marshalling the facts of the case. So first master the facts of the case, then only you can marshal the facts of the case. Then second important thing is each case The assessing officer might have written 50 pages. C8 appeal might have written 100 pages. But each case will have certain key issues, conceptual issues. You have to pick up those conceptual issues by reading the orders thoroughly. If you can hit upon those key issues, it would become very easy to convince the tribunal. The relief you get from the tribunal does not depend upon the number of minutes you are taking or the number of hours you are elaborately submitting your arguments before the tribunal. Even if you say 3 lines also, if you those 3 lines are very important and if they address the issue properly, then you are more likely to get relief than by standing before the tribunal and submitting arguments for an hour or so. So that is another important aspect that you have to take note of. Then third most important thing is when it comes to presenting a case law and taking support from that particular case law, always read the case law from top to bottom. Don't get misled by the head note of the decision. You may be aware that the head note of the decision is written by the editors or some team that are working for the publisher. If it is income tax reporter or if it is taxman or whatever may be the journal, there are some team of there is a team employed by them. They study the order of the court and they give the head note. Head note is never given by the court as such. Suppose tribunal gives a decision, they will not again give a head note also. So therefore, head note many a times can be misleading. Many a times it may not be properly conveying the purport of the decision rendered by the court. So therefore, it is your bounden duty that you start reading from the first line and end up reading the last line. Not once, at least twice or thrice. Try to ensure that there is a parity of facts. The facts that you are stated in the decision you want to rely upon and the facts in the case of the SSC which you want to represent. There should be parity of facts. If there is any variation between the facts in these two situations, then the decision will be distinguished. The decision will be easily distinguished. You should also be aware that it is not like a representation before the C8 appeal. When you are representing before a C8 appeal, apart from your mind, there is only one more mind working on the particular case. That is the mind of the C8 appeal. Whereas, when you are representing the case before the tribunal, apart from you, there are 3 more minds working simultaneously on this particular issue. One is the departmental representative. There will be an officer of the department who will be standing up and who will be giving reply to your arguments, who will be submitting his own case of the assessing officer. Now there are 2 members sitting in a division bench. Both of them might have already rendered so many decisions with regard to that particular issue. So their minds also will be working on the issue. So therefore, you should be ready for any sort of questions from any of these 3 persons. So therefore, it is easy for the other side to distinguish the case law you are citing if there is no parity of facts. You might have carried to the tribunal 15 decisions. No use, because none of the decisions there is a parity of facts with the facts in your case. You carry one decision, there is parity of facts, that is sufficient. So therefore, this is another important aspect that you should keep in mind. Then coming to the very same case laws, always first look for the decision of the Supreme Court, whether on this particular legal issue which you want to represent, whether there is any decision already rendered by the Supreme Court. There is no such decision. Then come down to the next forum. Next forum is High Court. Look for a decision of the High Court. No decision of High Court. Then come to tribunal. Unfortunately, many a times I find that the tribunal decisions are cited, though there is a very good High Court decision or a Supreme Court decision already on this particular issue. So the first importance should be for Supreme Court decision. Now, when it comes to High Court decisions, always look for jurisdictional High Court decision. For example, now Visakhapatnam bench means High Court of Andhra Pradesh at Amravati is the jurisdictional high. Hyderabad benches means High Court of Telangana. So therefore, always look for a jurisdictional High Court decision. Suppose it is not available, then only look for other High Court decisions. Suppose there is no Supreme Court decision, no High Court decision, you are forced to look for only tribunal decision. Then also the same rule applies. You want to represent in Visakhapatnam bench, you look for any decision already rendered on the very same subject by the Visakhapatnam bench. If you are going to Hyderabad bench, look for a decision rendered by Hyderabad bench. If it is Bombay, look for a decision by Bombay bench. Because of late, what we are finding is that Visakhapatnam bench will not give much importance to the decision rendered by Hyderabad or Mumbai bench. Hyderabad will not give due importance to Visakhapatnam bench. That is the state of affairs. We can't blame anyone. So from our side, we should be careful. So therefore, always try to look for the decision of the jurisdictional bench. Now, another most important practical aspect is why I have told you to read the facts thoroughly is because normally we go to the tribunal in a particular anticipation that yes, once the case is opened, I will start my argument. First, I will read the 5th page, para number 4 of the assessment order. Then I will read C8 appeal order, 3rd page, 7th para. Then only I will come to my case laws. Like that, you might have prepared yourself in a particular manner. But remember that the hearing in the tribunal most of the times will not go in a structured manner like this. Suppose the tribunal wants to know a particular fact, they will interrupt you. They will say, don't read all these things. First answer our question. Then only you come to your other facts. So many a times I find that the counsels get fumbled because they have come by preparing in a particular manner, and because they are being interrupted by the bench, they find themselves lacking and they fail to rise to the occasion. So why I am telling all these lapses is not finding fault with those persons who have already appeared. My intention is to convey to you all who want to take up this particular line of practice. Don't repeat those mistakes which your predecessors have already committed. So therefore, your preparation should be thorough. You should have complete grip over the facts of the case so that whatever bench asks, if you want to, you can immediately, you should be able to say, sir, please go to page number 30 of the assessment order. There is an answer for what the question you have raised. Or please go to 8th page of the C8 appeal order. There, this particular aspect is clearly discussed. After that, they are satisfied with regard to that particular query they have raised. Again, come back to your regular method of presentation and again start from where you have been actually interrupted by the tribunal. Now, in the very same context, the most important point you have to remember is that when you have started an argument, sometimes tribunal intercepts, they interrupt. They want to say that you are trying to say like this, but actually we want you to explain a particular aspect. So and so decision of the High Court, they have said like this, but you are saying like this, what you want to say. Like that, they will try to interrupt you so that they want to close the hearing quickly. Otherwise, because everybody is now constrained of time, so they want to dispose many appeals. So therefore, many a times it becomes necessary for them to interrupt the counsel. Never get offended. First point. Second point, when they are asking the questions, don't interrupt them. When they are asking the questions, listen to them completely, what they are trying to ask you. Then you first reply their query, then only go back to your arguments. This is another very, very important aspect which is very much necessary if you want to practice before the tribunal. The famous saying is, you may lose a case, but don't lose the bench. This is a famous saying. So don't enter into a confrontation with the members of the tribunal merely because you are getting a feel that your case is likely to be dismissed by the bench. Once they have formed a view, if possible, in a smooth and soft manner, if you can try to convince them by putting forth again your arguments or by reiterating your submissions, to that extent you can always make the effort. But don't raise your voice, don't enter into a confrontation with the tribunal only because of the anxiety that you are getting that the case is going to be lost. Because if you enter into such practice, once for all, you will be losing the bench. Next time you may be coming with a very good case before the bench, but bench will try to find out some loophole or the other, and they will either send back you to C8 appeal or they will send back you to assessing officer, but they will not allow your appeal. Most of the times it happens like that, though it may not be a correct practice, but that is how it actually happens. After all, everybody is a human being. Then another most important point is build up a trust with the bench. They should have a confidence that so-and-so person is representing the case. He is not going to misguide us. He is not going to misrepresent the facts of the case. For example, you know very well that there is a high court decision against you, jurisdictional high court. Somehow or the other, assessing officer has not cited that. C8 appeal has also not cited that. So therefore, you want to remain silent and you want to put forth your case on the basis of some other decision, and you may get relief if the tribunal is also not aware of the high court decision. But one day or the other, tribunal will know. Suppose then once they come to know that this jurisdictional high court decision was suppressed, then they will make a note in their file, and that's all. Thereafter, even if your matter is a covered matter, they will not immediately give relief. They will do research of their own. They will adjourn the case. Then only they will decide the matter. So therefore, gaining confidence of the bench is very much important if you want to sustain in this particular area of practice. Then another most practical tip rather I want to mention is that whatever bench you want to argue before, suppose you have a case in Visakhapatnam bench, you want to argue before Visakhapatnam bench. Don't come straight away to the bench on the day of hearing. Nowadays, it is a hybrid system of hearing, and you can log in and observe the proceedings, even though you may not be having any case on that particular day. So my sincere suggestion to all of you is that observe the bench at least for 1 week, but it would be better if we can observe the bench for 2 weeks or at least for a period of 4 weeks. 1 month is a reasonable period wherein you will be knowing how the bench addresses the issue, how the bench keeps asking the questions, what type of arguments find favor with the bench, what type of arguments may not find favor with the bench. This study of the mood of the bench is very, very important for you to represent a case. You may be having a very good case, but that is not sufficient. You should be able to convince the bench that you have a good case. So therefore, observe the bench for a reasonably long period so that you get a feel of the bench. And then another fundamental aspect I want to touch upon is that without proper authority from the SSC, you should never stand up before the appellate forum. If you are a chartered accountant, you have to file your special power of attorney. If you are an advocate, you have to file a wakalat. Without filing the basic authorization, you should never venture to stand up before the tribunal. And if it so happens that somebody else has already filed their power of attorney or wakalat, it is your bounden duty to first take a no objection from the previous counsel before you take up the matter. Then the another important aspect is you should be as brief as possible while presenting your case before the tribunal. A case can be presented in 10 minutes. A case can also be presented in an hour. So what can be presented in 10 minutes, if you want to take 1 hour, the bench will get impatient and they will simply lose focus, and all your important arguments may be lost sight of by the bench. So therefore, brevity and preciseness is the most important requirements for the purpose of representing a case before the tribunal. Don't try to address the gallery. For example, when you are representing a case in a tribunal, there may be 10 other persons sitting behind you. don't try to play to the gallery, in the sense that because there are 10 other people watching you, you don't you should not extend your arguments. You should not try to stand up for a lengthier, for a longer time, only to impress the gallery. That will only work adversely for you. And always develop the art of listening. This is very, very important, because we are all auditors. We anyhow have that art of listening. But even when it comes to representation before tribunal, what bench is saying, that is very, very important. Many a times what we see is bench, you start reading a particular pair of the assessment order, your head is down, and you are not observing what the bench is doing. It so happens that bench are not even listening to what you are reading, and the two members are discussing with each other of a particular issue they want to raise before you. And this person keeps on reading without even observing whether the members are listening to or not. So therefore, always keep an eye on the bench, keep an eye on what the mood of the bench is, and then only proceed further in representing the matter. And then the procedure for representation is, suppose you are representing the SSC as an appellant, then it is your turn first. First, you will stand up and you will present the case. Then the departmental representative will give the make his arguments. Reply, it is called. Then you can only stand up and give rejoinder. You cannot again start your case afresh. You cannot again take up some arguments which you have omitted to make in the very first round. Though sometimes, many a times, tribunals are not so strict, but the procedure demands that in your very first turn, you cover all the issues. After the departmental representative submits his case, your job is restricted to only a rejoinder. That means any new issues the departmental representative has raised, only to that extent you have to confine yourself by answering those particular issues raised by the department. Then another important point is that whatever documents you have filed before the assessing officer, or whatever submissions you have made before the tribunal, they are not part of the record before the bench. The bench will be having only the Form 36 that you have filed, along with the relevant annexures, that is order of the C8 appeal, grounds of appeal and statement of facts before the C8 appeal, and the assessment order. These are the only particular documents that the bench will be having with them. So if you want to refer to any particular document which is very much relevant for making your submissions, then you should file those papers in advance. Technically, it is called filing a paper book. So always ensure filing of paper book well in advance, because the departmental representative has to go through that particular paper book so that he can also give his reply. So if you are carrying the paper book along with you on the day of hearing, most of the times what happens is departmental representative will raise an objection saying that I have not yet gone through the paper book, I need to go through it, so kindly adjourn the case. So therefore the case will be adjourned for sure. All your time, effort and money will be wasted. So therefore always file paper book in advance. These are then the stay petition, as I've already mentioned. Tribunal, if you have already filed an appeal before the tribunal, you can follow it up by filing a stay petition. If the bench is inclined, subject to payment of 20%, they are granting stay for the balance amount till the appeal before the tribunal is disposed of. Because you should be knowing that once the C8 appeal dismisses the order appeal filed by you, the stay granted by the assessing officer becomes inoperative. Whatever terms on which assessing officer has granted stay, that is operative only till the disposal of appeal filed before the C8 appeal. The day C8 appeal passes the order, the stay comes to an end. So therefore, department is entitled to recover the demand. So therefore, you should immediately file an appeal before the tribunal along with a stay petition. Only if you have a stay order from the tribunal, you can preclude or prevent the department from enforcing the recovery measures. So therefore, stay comes very handy when you are filing the appeal on behalf of the SSC and there is some demand still to be paid to the department. Friends, I have tried to cover as many issues as possible. There are so many other small issues. One more important aspect I would like to cover before I conclude, that is filing of additional evidence. Here also, yesterday my friend might have already covered this aspect when it comes to C8 appeal. More or less, I would say that more or less the same principles apply before the tribunal also. I would only like to leave one word of caution that as such, it is very difficult to convince the C8 appeal himself with regard to admission of your additional evidence. Most of the time, assessing officers raise an objection that we have issued at least 10 notices. SSC has not responded without any reason. Now he is coming before you and he is filing additional evidence. So therefore, his evidence should not be admitted. So as such, it is very difficult to convince the C8 appeal himself to admit the additional evidence. Now the job is more difficult when it comes to tribunal. So therefore, again, we come back to the very first stage of my presentation, that the assessment proceedings should be properly attended to. Whatever evidence is required, 100% evidence should be filed before the assessing officer. Never be afraid that assessing officer may cause some inquiries, may prove this evidence to be wrong, and therefore I will withhold some evidence. I will file it at a later stage, because even if you file the evidence before the C8 appeal, he is only going to remand it to the assessing officer. So therefore, getting that evidence, getting subjected to inquiry is a inevitable conclusion. Even if you file it before the tribunal also, they will not give any direct relief. They will set aside the entire matter to the assessing officer. They will ask him to verify the evidence. Then only the matter will be decided. So therefore, it is our bounden duty that we file all the evidence. In this regard, just I want to spend another 2-3 minutes. In this faceless assessment era, many a times the answer I am getting from the consultants is that the assessing officer has asked vouchers for all the expenses. The vouchers run into 3,000 documents or 5,000 documents. So how can we file these 5,000 vouchers? Therefore, we have not filed. No. Once you are asked by the assessing officer to file some documents, dump the documents. After all, it costs only the scanning charges and some time by some clerk or the accountant of the company or the SSC, who should spend some time to get the documents scanned and divide them into small segments so that you can upload the documents. So don't worry about the volume of the data the assessing officer is asking. It is his headache. Once you file 5,000 vouchers in a digital format, you just step into the shoes of the assessing officer and think how difficult his job is going to be to examine all these vouchers. So therefore, what he will see is only 5,000 vouchers are filed or not. He is not going to examine them most of the times. So therefore, never shirk from filing the evidence before the assessing officer. An assessment proceeding properly represented will give effective relief in the appeals filed before the appellate authorities. Failing which, in exceptional circumstances, you should make up the case before the CAT appeal himself. Only in extraordinary circumstances only, you should come with some additional evidence before the tribunal. This is what it is about regarding additional evidence. So with this, I'd like to conclude my presentation with regard to this particular topic. I hope I have given you a basic idea of what is an appeal before the tribunal and what are the various precautions you have to take and how to develop the art of representing a case before the tribunal. But still, I might have left out many other issues, and you can. I would be very much happy and willing to answer your queries if you have any in the limited time that is possible and to the best of my knowledge.
Yes, sir.
I thank the committee, Visakhapatnam Vijayawada branch, for having given me this opportunity. I would like to once again say that it is indeed a pleasure for me that whatever knowledge I have, I am sharing with my professional brethren, because any art for that matter, it should continue. Though it is maybe exaggeration, my friend has said Visakhapatnam bench means Harigar only. It may be partly true, but I don't deny. But I don't want that kind of supremacy. It is not my willingness or my choice. I want more people to come. I want more people to represent the cases before the tribunal. For anybody, there is a limitation. I can argue 10 cases, I can argue 50 cases, I can argue 100 cases. I cannot argue 200 cases. There is a limitation. So therefore, I encourage all of you to learn this particular art. You are welcome. If you have already started this, if you come across any difficulties in the process of preparation of appeals, in the process of representation, if you are stuck up with any stalemate issues, please feel free to message me. Don't call me directly. Whenever I have time, I will certainly answer all your queries. I want more and more people to develop this art of representation because it is in the larger interest of the taxpayers that we should gear up. Because as I have already mentioned, in this faceless era, and because of the amendment to 148A and non-updation of emails and other data, many assessments are being made. Umpteen number of assessments are made. It is time for all our professionals to gear up and address the concern of the SSC and give them the best service possible. So therefore, I not only now, even in future also, whenever you have any doubts, you can feel free to contact me. Once, therefore, what I want to say is that it is really a happy moment for me to be here and share my knowledge with all of you. I don't want to retain knowledge with myself. I am always ready to spread the knowledge to my professional. Thank you. Thank you for the.
Yes, sir. Definitely, sir. You are so generous. And you might be having so many juniors too. Yeah, that I wanted to ask you to switch on your video. Right. So, so you might already be training so many of your juniors. So, and also it is the need of the hour that more and more people need to come into this because the number of appeals to be made before the tribunal and the commissioner appeals are day by day increasing. But we see in the forthcoming years also, in the near future also, I think the objective of the central government might be to simplify the income tax so that the litigation will be minimized. Of course, the main intention of the 148A itself is that it give an opportunity and see that the case is not simply reopened, but though the intention of the revenue of the government seems like that, but the way things are moving are quite opposite to that. And also, sir, you have presented, you told in the beginning of your presentation that you did not prepare a structured PPT, but the way you have delivered your lecture is more structured than that of a PPT. And also, I should definitely say from my heart one more word regarding your lecture this 2 hours time. And somewhere in how to file tribunals, there was a book which I used to refer earlier. In that, there is one important point that whenever you give arguments before the bench, as far as possible, be pleasant. Don't shout at them. Place before them your arguments in a very smooth and neat manner. And you are used to arguing before the tribunal and in the seminar also in the same fashion, in a very smooth environment and in a very structured environment, you have present everything. And out of this, those who are not into tribunal practice, but who are up to commissioner, you have given the precautions to be taken, like at the time of advising the clients with regard to the preparation of accounts in a flawless manner to the possible extent. When you as a auditor submitting the tax audit report, what precautions are to be taken, or at the appeal stage, what are the precautions that are to be taken? Definitely, yes, sir. Those of us who are up to commissioner appeals, we will definitely take those precautions which you have put forth before us. And if anyone want to go to into the tribunal appeals, you have definitely given your tons of knowledge and experience you have placed before that. And it is appreciable that you don't think the other people coming into this tribunal practice are competitors to you, but you want to help them. And you also wish that more and more people come into this side of practice. So definitely we will appreciate your presentation and also your thought process, sir. Now, with your permission, I will, if you want to take up any of the queries of the participants, I will enable the participants to unmute themselves. And previously in chat box, there are 1 or 2 queries, sir. Yeah, Pradeep Goyalji, you want to speak?
Yes, yes.
Yes, please go on.
Yes.
Please go on.
Sir, good evening, sir.
Good evening.
Sir, myself CA Pradeep Goyal from Punjab. I am attending from Barnala.
Oh,
Barnala city, Punjab state.
oh, very good.
By nice deliberations, yesterday I also heard Farguna sir on CIT appeal and today I heard you. Sir, I have 2 queries.
Yes, yes.
One query is कि I filed the additional evidence and CIT appeal sent for the remand report and AO called the documents. I filed all the documents in the remand report, but CIT passed the order without giving me an option for rejoinder. No notice was issued me to rejoinder. He straightway got the remand report and issued passed the order. This is the first my question. Please quote any case law and what I can do in now tribunal.
No case
So
law is required for this. See, in your appeal, now the good thing is that your additional evidence was acted upon by the assessing officer, and he has
Yes.
already given a report. So
yes.
therefore, it can be a part of your regular paper book. So
Yes.
it won't amount to additional evidence before the tribunal. Tribunal is bound to look into those documents, irrespective of whatever may be the comments of the assessing officer and whatever may be the final observations of the CAT appeal, irrespective of the fact whether you were given any opportunity by them or not. Tribunal is now giving you an opportunity of hearing. Before tribunal, you can convince them that because of all these documentary evidence, the addition cannot be sustained. So therefore, the only important point is, had the CAT appeal not remitted the evidence to the assessing officer and called for a remand report, technically it may amount to additional evidence again before the tribunal. But luckily in your case, CAT appeal has already admitted your evidence. He has already called for a remand report. Mere lack of opportunity before the CAT appeal, if you insist upon a case which otherwise you will get a relief directly from the tribunal, if you insist upon a lack of opportunity before CAT appeal, they will simply find it a way to send it back to the CAT appeal. They will say that you are saying you don't have an opportunity, you did not get an opportunity before CAT appeal. Therefore, go back to CAT appeal and submit all your arguments there. Unnecessarily, a case which you are going to get direct relief from the tribunal, you will yourself will be becoming a hurdle for that.
Sir, one more thing. In this case, firstly, CIT lacked for giving me a opportunity for rejoinder. In the last para of the order, CIT has stated that I have gone through the additional evidence, but the same does not fall under Rule 46A, so I don't admit the additional evidence. So he has examined the evidence. He has examined the evidences, but not admitted it. And what can be done now? This is
So
second
the point is, now in the faceless appeal system, a
Yes.
protocol has been given whereby once you file an additional evidence, there is no discretion left for the CAT appeal. He
Yes.
will first send the evidence to the assessing officer for his comments.
Yes.
Therefore, mere sending of the evidence to the assessing officer does not mean that CAT appeal has accepted your petition for admission of additional evidence. This is the most important. Now,
Okay.
assessing officer in his remand report, whether he has raised any objection for admission of additional evidence or not, that is one thing. Even if he has not raised also, even if he has religiously followed the directions of the CAT appeal and examined all the documents and has given his independent report, still the learned CAT appeal, it is his discretion and domain to decide whether you have valid circumstances which have necessitated filing of additional evidence or not. So therefore, he is having every right to take a call to admit or not to admit additional evidence. Merely because remand report is already on record, that does not mean CAT appeal is bound to render a decision on the remand report. You can as well take an argument before the tribunal that having called for the report, the assessing officer has taken all the pains to verify the evidence. Now the CAT appeal ought to have admitted the evidence. He is not fair enough in rejecting my additional evidence. This is only an argument before the tribunal. Per se, you cannot say that CAT appeal acted contrary to law. You cannot argue like. You can only request the tribunal to consider your case and treat it as a case where additional evidence is admissible.
But sir, our jurisdictional High Court, Punjab Haryana High Court had decided that when the matter goes to the root of the matter, additional evidence goes to the root of the matter, then same should be admitted by the CAT appeal. And I had quoted the case.
That is what. See, that is your argument before the tribunal. By citing the High Court decision, you should be able to convince the tribunal that as CAT appeal ought to have admitted additional evidence. He erred in not admitting additional evidence.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
Welcome.
Sir, there are some queries in the chat box, sir.
Yes.
Somebody asking what is the dress code of a lawyer or a chartered accountant before the tribunal?
Yes. This is actually I wanted to cover this dress code, but dress code is for chartered accountants that section I think 288 or something act that prescribes the dress code for a chartered accountant. So the same dress code is applicable for tribunal also. That means you have to wear a suit and compulsorily you have to wear a tie. This is the dress code for chartered. For advocates, the bar council rules are there. The band, white shirt and black coat. This is the dress code.
And the same participant wants to know.
And another important point I want to mention here is that merely because you are representing a matter online or merely because you are only seeking adjournment in a case, that does not enable you to represent the matter before the tribunal without following the dress code properly. Of late, this mistake is being committed by many. They say that today I have come only for seeking adjournment, so therefore I have not come in a proper dress code. No, it is not acceptable. And suppose there are two partners in an office. Senior partner is out of station. Junior partner is representing. He should also wear tie and all that before, even for seeking adjournment also, he should come in a proper dress code. Third important thing is never send or make your staff represent before the tribunal for seeking adjournment or for any other miscellaneous matters. It is only the authorized representative who can stand up and seek even adjournment. There is a bad practice of sending office clerks for seeking adjournment. That is not accepted by the tribunal. They take it very seriously.
And someone want to know whether the dress code applies to video conference hearing also.
Yes, very much. No exemption.
And what are the enclosures to be made while filing petition for stay of demand, sir?
See, for stay of demand, basically all the appeal papers are already there before the tribunal. So therefore, the basic stay petition and the affidavit along with the stay petition, these are the basic requirements. Now, whatever merits you have in the appeal, with regard to that, by the time the stay petition comes for hearing before the tribunal, they look into mainly two aspects. One is whether you have a prima facie case or not. This might have been already discussed yesterday. And the second thing is financial difficulty. So with regard to prima facie case, since you have already filed an appeal, without filing appeal, you cannot file stay petition. So in the appeal filed, you have to file a paper book in advance before the stay petition comes up for hearing. So if any prima facie, while convincing the bench with regard to the prima facie case, if you have to refer to some documentary evidence, you can easily draw their attention to the paper book you have already filed. Otherwise, you will be failing in that aspect. As far as financial constraint is concerned, it cannot be filed as a part of paper because they were not part of the assessment record or the appeal record. So therefore, you have to separately file those documents along with your stay petition. You can even file across the hearing. You can hand it over to the bench, hand it over across to the bench, and convince them that so and so financial difficulties you are facing.
Right.
So there is no hard and fast rule as to what are the enclosures. Enclosures are stay petition and affidavit and filing fees. These are the basic things. paper book always a must when you are arguing a stay matter, because merits of the case always you should convince the bench. And financial difficulty, it depends upon case to case. By carrying what document you will be able to convince the bench with regard to your financial difficulty. It cannot be explained in advance. It changes from case to case.
Yes. Now, one participant want to ask that how extent facts should be accurate. As years pass, the evidence tough to collect with respect to cash deposits, creditors, debtors confirmation. In this case, what is a good bad case?
See, as I've already mentioned, the beginning, well begun is half done. I have already told you. So, see, if there is a lapse in the very beginning, that carries to the end.
Yes, yes.
That's all. That's in short, that is my answer.
Yes. Instead of, this is the follow-up question for dress code. Instead of full suit with tie, can you appear before the ITAT with gala band suit without
Yes,
tie?
yes,
Mostly North Indian dress.
No, allowed.
What is the fees to be paid for appeal before the tribunal?
Up to 1 lakh income assessed, it is 500. 1 lakh to 2 lakhs, it is 1500. Then above 2 lakhs and over and above that, 1% of the income assessed are 10,000 rupees, whichever is less.
So 10,000 is the maximum.
10,000 is the maximum. There are so many connected issues with regard to appeal fees actually. So like, for example, it is a loss case. So loss is 20 lakhs. See, the act says income assessed above 2 lakhs, 1% of the income assessed. So suppose 11 lakhs is the income assessed, 1% means 11,000. You have to pay 10,000. Suppose 11 lakhs is the loss assessed. So there, some courts have taken a view that it is enough if you pay 500 rupees. Because it comes to less than 1 lakh. Income less than 1 lakh means loss also gets covered under that particular limb.
Okay, okay, sir. Not to take any risk.
Yes.
Paying
10,000 rupees always better to pay 10,000.
Pay 10,000 rupees to not to.
Exactly. And I will tell you one more thing. Suppose the registry or the bench objects, the heavens are not going to fall. You can make up for the deficit. You can pay another challan for the balance. Your appeal will not be dismissed on that without giving you opportunity.
Even after the expiry of the time limit.
Yes. Some benches, very rarely, they construe it as a delay. In which case, in any case, you have a reasonable cause, sufficient cause. Because you are under the bona fide belief 500 is sufficient. Now only you have come to know 10,000 is required. So there is a sufficient cause. So it was an empty formality to file a delay condonation petition. Bench is bound to condone that.
Yes. And someone wants to know that if he has filed an appeal before ITAT against the CAT order, ITAT has referred back to CAT appeals to reconsider the facts of the case in the month of August 2023. But so far they have not received
no time limit for CAT. No time limit for CAT appeal. If the matter is set aside to assessing officer only, that time limits under section 153 will come into. My friend C.A. Surichandra is present.
Yes, from Vizag. Yes.
And, he wants me to deliberate upon miscellaneous petition, which I have actually left out. So very briefly, I will cover for 5 minutes. So see, once an order is passed by the tribunal, there are 3 different situations, or rather 2 different situations. One is that you have filed an adjournment, or you have not even filed any adjournment. Somehow you have not represented the matter before the tribunal, and the appeal is decided ex parte. So if the appeal is decided ex parte, there are 2 rules, Rule 24 and Rule 25. One is for if you are representing the appellant, then one rule is if you are representing the respondent. That means in department appeal, you are representing the SSC, that is respondent. In SSC's appeal, you are representing the SSC who is an appellant. So it's only change of rule, but the content is the same. So as per rule 24 or 25, when an appeal is decided ex parte by the tribunal, by showing a sufficient cause for not appearing before the tribunal on the day of hearing, you can seek for recall of the appeal. This is called recall of the appeal. So that again the appeal will be posted for hearing. You will be given a fresh opportunity to make your submissions. Now this is not to be filed under section 254. It is to be filed under rule 24 or 25. This is a very, very important aspect actually, because rule 24 or 25, there is no time limit. You have to only convince the bench that you have a sufficient cause in not representing the matter before the tribunal when on the day of hearing. At the same time, it is not that even after 4 or 5 years we can file a petition under rule 24 or 25. When you have the first knowledge that your appeal was dismissed by the tribunal, from the date of first knowledge of the dismissal of the appeal, within a very reasonable time, you have to file this rule 24 or 25. Then comes another situation. You have made a representation before the tribunal. You have argued total 4 grounds, but they have decided only 3 grounds. To err is human. So 4th ground they have omitted to consider. So in such a circumstance, you can file a petition under section 254 of the Income Tax, 254(2) of the Income Tax Act, whereby you can call for the intervention of the bench for rectification of the order. It is rectification of the order. Not deciding a particular ground of appeal amounts to an error in the order. So therefore, you can seek for rectification of the order. Now, you have made so many arguments. All your facts were considered. All your arguments were considered. Somehow the decision of the tribunal does not appear to be on a proper lines according to you. This will not entitle you to file a petition for rectification. Rectification is different. Review is different. That amounts to review of the order. Tribunal has no power to review their own order. They can at the most only correct any apparent mistake in their order. That's it. So if any fact is not correctly stated, those things are, if any ground is not properly not considered at all, or exceptional circumstances, like for example, you have cited a Supreme Court decision which is squarely covers the matter before the tribunal, but Supreme Court decision was not considered at all in the order. So such circumstances, very rare circumstances only, 254(2) you can invoke, and you can file a miscellaneous petition. Filing fees is 50 rupees for miscellaneous petition. Filing fees is 500 rupees for a stay petition.
Right. So I will ask this out of curiosity, sir. Previously, Falgun sir told me that even at this age, he studied for 2 hours a day. I hope the time is 2 hours a day, Falgun sir, or has it increased nowadays? So what is your study time, sir? So that young members...
Every order I read, every assessment order I read, every CAT appeal order I read, that itself is a study for me.
That apart, sir, updating yourself, you already told that one should get updated. So
yeah, fortunately nowadays we have WhatsApp. So while traveling from home to office, office to home, from office to tribunal, tribunal to office, many enthusiastic friends are kind enough to share the updates with regard to these legal issues. So it is coming really very handy that they keep posting these messages, whereby people like me getting updated. Though I have the habit of reading journals as well, if a journal is not read by me, it will be remaining there.
Yeah.
So only after reading only it goes inside into the cabin. So
one more question, sir. One more question, please.
Yes.
Suppose ITIT set aside the order and nullified the order.
Nullified means?
Nullified means it's the AO's order is time barred and it is not
Okay, they allowed the appeal.
Allowed the appeal. But in between, we have filed a revised return.
Oh, yes, after assessment,
Filed a original return and a revised return also. And the original return was, original assessment order was nullified.
2 assessments were made?
Yeah.
How 2 assessments for 1 assessment here?
No. It's a common order for such case 6 years they have passed an assessment order. Nullifying the order, it is a time barred. But while we filed a original return and a revised return. Okay. But the consequential order, instead of taking the original return, they have passed the revised return as taken into the account.
No, revised return filed subsequent to the completion of the assessment is of it is not valid actually.
Okay.
So the consequential order, you can file an appeal before the C8.
We can file an appeal or we can file 154.
No. See, before C8 appeal, directly appeal on.
Okay. This consequential order is erroneous. We have to file an appeal.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Right. So I'm afraid we have exhausted the queries. So closing remarks from you, sir, Falgun sir.
No.
There is no necessity of closing remarks because extensively, with rapt attention, I have heard him, and many of the participants also with his rich experience, and he has shared meticulously, as you have already said. Though he said it is not structured, like me, no PPT. For him, PPT is not necessary. So just like the first day, Kapil Goyal extempore lecture he has given without looking into any of these things, because of the vast experience. Day in and day out, he is representing before the tribunals. So his rich experience is so valuable. What by physically practicing for years, you try to learn and say, understand. He has put it in a nutshell as a capsule. So he has given it. So I'm thankful to him, and on behalf of the members and participants also, I am once again extending my congratulations to him for presenting this beautiful thing and sharing to members.
I take it as a blessing, sir. Take it as a blessing.
Sir, it's Lord Venkateshwara is there. We are sincerely taking up the cases, each and every case, so sincerely taking up and sincerely practicing for consistently, continuously for several decades. That is a hats off to GVNC. Thank you, sir.
Sir, for you, Lord Venkateswara, for him it is Appana Swami.
It's true.
Local guards.
Local god.
Sir, having knowledge, experience is one part of it, but the intent to share among others is another part of it. It is a noble cause. So people like you and Falgun sir, sharing knowledge and experience with others, definitely it is a noble cause. And with God's grace only, it is possible. And you people also have very much faith in the God, and you excel in such a fashion and share your knowledge and experience.
Sir, the Pradeep Goyal has put a question to you, sir, in the question hours. Pradeep Goyal from Barnala. He is the auditor for Golden Temple.
Oh, okay.
He is my close friend. So I sent this. I want him to listen to you. Yesterday he participated. So I sent this to him and asked him to listen to you. He represents the Golden Temple. He represents before CBTD. He has close access to the North Block CBTD. So such a versatile person. So
Very
that's
good.
all.
Very good. Sir, with your help, maybe we can also take up a topic with him. I will talk to you separately in this regard, definitely. And our intention is to rope in as many as people who will be helpful to the fraternity that is behind our mind. So definitely. So on this note, I thank all of you for attending this program. And also I thank today's speaker, Hari sir, who had made time, find out some time so that he will be addressing our meeting. And definitely this is a very much useful session for us, sir. Also, I thank our Falgun sir who helped me in designing the program and also in suggesting good speakers for respective topics. And finally, I thank all our participants who have even joined across the states, pan-India. I may term this as a pan-India seminar. And also I submit that this recordings, 3-day recordings, will be available already. The previous 2 days are already available on YouTube. And this recording will be made available by tomorrow. And I will share in the groups, and also I will share the videos with the speakers also. With this note, I take leave from this session, and I thank all of you for participating, and we all will meet in another session on another day. Thank you once again.
Thank you.